Every year, millions of tons of consumer and industrial byproducts are pushed into landfills, scrapyards, and waste facilities. For many artists looking to build a sustainable practice, this vast surplus looks like a goldmine of free, ready-to-use material. But there is a trap in this approach. A common misconception in the studio is that simply choosing to work with discarded items, organic matter, or alternative media automatically makes the resulting artwork sustainable. This leads to portfolios full of vague, unprovable claims. Labels like eco-friendly or statements asserting that an artwork saves the environment sound good on a gallery wall, but they rarely hold up to basic scrutiny. A genuinely sustainable material practice requires a rigorous accounting of a material's source, how it is processed, studio safety, local context, and its entire life cycle. We have to recognize that materials are not neutral. Even when pulled from the trash, they carry real-world histories of production, human labor, and pollution. Look at this pile of discarded electronics. When an artist pulls from this stack, they are inheriting the burden of digital consumption, toxic disposal systems, and a global dependency on rare earth metals. Timber residue from a construction yard carries the specific history of local land use, resource extraction, and industrial labor practices. The challenge, then, is moving past the object itself. How do we transition from simply making a visually interesting object out of waste to clearly justifying an ethical material practice? We will break down how to move away from superficial material selection and build a framework for rigorous, ethical accountability at every stage of the artistic process. Relying on materials solely for their visual properties fails the standard of professional responsibility. True sustainability in art demands an accountable material journey, from the point of collection to the close of the exhibition. Let's trace two different approaches to making an artwork. We can map out a superficial practice on the left and an accountable practice on the right. We will use organic sago waste intended for a community installation as our test case. On the superficial path, an artist might buy generic organic matter online and place it in the gallery. The decision is driven purely by the material's unusual texture. This ignores the material's origin. Stripping context leaves the audience unable to understand why this material matters. On the accountable path, the artist traces the material to its source, documenting the farm and community where the sago waste originated. This introduces community accountability. The artist asks who produced the material, what local knowledge is attached to it, and whether permission was officially obtained to use it. Extracting materials or stories without context often results in misrepresentation or tokenistic participation, turning the community into a passive resource. An accountable artist plans the project so that the community itself gains awareness, recognition, or a direct benefit from the interaction. The source dictates the meaning of the work. An undocumented origin yields a conceptually weak and ethically hollow piece of art. Once the material is ethically sourced, it moves to the second phase of its life cycle, physical transformation in the studio. This brings us to a second case study: domestic plastic waste. Let's say we want to use discarded dishwashing bottles to comment on consumer culture. Taking the superficial route, an artist might decide to melt or burn the plastic with a heat gun to create novel, organic-looking sculptural shapes. This imitates industrial processing without understanding the chemistry. Melting unknown plastics releases toxic fumes, requiring specific ventilation that most shared studios lack. Studio safety is a core ethical issue.
An artist is directly responsible for the health and protection of their collaborators, technicians, and anyone else sharing the workspace. Taking the accountable route means accepting the limitations of the studio environment and choosing alternative ways to manipulate the material. Instead of heating, the artist processes the plastic responsibly, cleaning it, sorting by color, and utilizing cold assembly techniques like cutting, folding, or stitching. Before exhibition, they conduct further risk management, checking for sharp cut edges or ensuring heavy modular structures are fully stable for public display. Organic materials like our sago waste carry their own risks. Moisture can lead to rapid fungus growth, rot, or insect infestations that compromise shared gallery spaces. A material might be highly sustainable at the point of collection, but careless processing will immediately transform it into a professional liability. The accountability matrix extends to the final stages of the artwork's life cycle: how it is exhibited and what happens when the show comes down. This is where we encounter greenwashing in the arts. Greenwashing happens when an artist uses sustainability as a surface claim without providing hard evidence of the source, process, or afterlife of the materials. A classic example is an artist exhibiting a sculpture made of plastic bottles and claiming this single installation solves plastic pollution. Look at the scale of an actual industrial landfill. A single art piece does not reverse this systemic reality, and claiming it does is dishonest. Environmental accountability requires acknowledging the full footprint of the artwork. That includes the hidden energy to build it, the transport to the gallery, chemical adhesives, and the electricity required to keep the exhibition air-conditioned. It also demands a plan for the artwork's afterlife. An artist must know exactly what happens to the piece once the exhibition concludes. Accountable options are specific. The artist plans for safe dismantling, long-term storage, proper recycling, or thoroughly documented natural decay. Ethical practice requires artists to publicly acknowledge their environmental limitations. Presenting clear facts is far more powerful than hiding behind exaggerated savior narratives. All of these decisions, source, process, safety, and afterlife, must be formalized. This is done through an impact statement, an essential professional tool that connects material process directly to ethical meaning. A rigorous impact statement moves away from broad philosophy and relies on specific, defensible data. It is built on 5 distinct pillars. A superficial artist statement ignores this structure entirely, offering claims like, "I used plastic waste to save the environment. It is fully sustainable." That statement is too broad, impossible to prove, and completely hides the actual methodology of the studio. Let's build an accountable statement instead. We start with precise identification. This artwork uses discarded detergent containers collected from local households to highlight consumer plastic waste. Next, we add the methodology and safety mitigations. The containers were cleaned, cut, and assembled without heat treatment to reduce fume-related risk. We conclude with the timeline. The process was documented from collection to installation. Afterward, the modules will be dismantled and reused. This creates an ethical defense. Using this exact evidence, an artist can confidently answer detailed questioning from curators, communities, and critics. Being transparent about limitations does not weaken the artwork. Acknowledging exact methods and boundaries builds professional trust and credibility. A responsible artist justifies, explains, and takes total accountability for the material's journey, rather than focusing solely on visual success.